On to this story now. Russia and Ukraine might be at the other end of the world, but the impact of the conflict will reach our shores. Ukraine is a major oil producer and war will threaten supply, causing an even a bigger fuel price increase. And with a hike in fuel, that comes with a spike in the prices of basic goods, including food. Professor Bonke Dumisa, an economic analyst, joins us now from Durban for more on this particular development. Prof, many thanks for your time this evening. Let's start with the direct implications that South Africans could face should the conflict between the two countries continue as it's been now for a few days.
Okay, the direct impact, we are already having it. In less than 36 hours from now, the petrol price and the diesel price will be increasing in South Africa, and that is directly related to this, because as soon as these tensions started, we started seeing the international Brent crude prices increasing from just less than $91 per barrel at the beginning of February. And by the time Russia invaded Ukraine on Thursday, and that was the last day of the price determination period for our fuel price adjustments, the price had jumped to over $105 a barrel, and that was factored in this R1.46 per liter increase for petrol and R1.48 per liter for diesel. So we are feeling the impact already. Some of the impacts that we are not yet sure whether they are going to be that significant is we are buying a lot of wheat from Russia and Ukraine. So if ever the sanctions on Russia affect us a lot, then the question is then, are we going to comfortably go on with buying more than from Ukraine? And the answer is the way the South African government sometimes feel they are indebted to Russia for its real genuine support during the liberation struggle days. I see that there may be some challenges, but yeah, so those are some of the things. But there is one positive thing that many people may not be mentioning. The gold price has increased significantly to over $1,900 per ton. No, not per ton, per ounce, since this whole thing started going up. In fact, on Friday, it was $1,940 per ounce. And the higher the gold price, the more foreign currency we get in South Africa, which boosts our volatile rand. But hey, you cannot simply depend on that one, because the only reason why the gold price is up, it is because people buy a lot of gold as a safe haven during times of war. We must be more worried about this in the international Brent crude oil price, which is affected by this, because people are angry there and they want to blame government. No matter how many times you tell them that this has nothing to do with the South African government, this is what is happening. The international Brent crude prices have skyrocketed because of this. And the paradox of the whole thing is that as the US was very involved in this, the US, Ukraine, and Russia benefited a lot from this higher increased Brent crude oil prices, because they are the high suppliers of Brent crude oil. So people are fighting amongst themselves and they benefit in the process, but we right down there at the end of the African continent are suffering the consequences
No, absolutely. Prof, you raise a very important point about the foreign currency that will be flowing into South Africa because of that higher gold price. And I like what you say there, that it's not sustainable and that these kind of cash flows will regulate or correct themselves at some stage should there be some kind of intervention to stop what is happening between Russia and Ukraine. So perhaps just maybe detail that us for a little bit more in terms of the short-term extra supply of money and that being incorporated into South Africa's budget. It's not something that we can rely on as a long-term provider of revenue in the country.
Yes, that is true. We cannot depend on it in the long term, but you must remember when the Minister of Finance, Mr. Enoch Godongwana, tabled his budget speech last week, one thing he mentioned was that the South African Revenue Services was able to actually get more money than was targeted for, and that flowed from the mineral sales from South Africa. So what happened was, as the gold price went up and the PGM products, that is including palladium and platinum, went up, then there was more money which came to South Africa, and we were able to get more than 168 billion more than was targeted for, which no one was going to happen. So let us hope then during this window, as we are still angry with this international Brent crude oil price going up like this, at least there will be something to cheer us up. And we say, well, at least we're able to get some many billions because of this increase in gold price.
No, absolutely. Just a final thought from you, Professor. If you could just paint a very basic picture of the basic increases that people will be looking forward to, unfortunately not looking forward to, but can expect as we see these developments continue to unfold. We've spoken about the price of fuel, and that has a ripple effect on food. You've spoken about wheat and the fact that I think we import about 30% of wheat from these countries. So really just a basic basket of goods for the South African consumer is about to get even more expensive.
Yeah, that's the sad part. And what is even worse is that when we are talking about the basic price increases of food, it affects the poor the most, because for them, they buy those things as a necessity, whereas for the rich people, those are some of the things they just buy, but it does not account a lot for their budget. So because everything we eat in South African news goes through the road, so the one rand 48 per liter for diesel that we will see from Wednesday onwards is going to be pushed on to us as the end users, as the consumers, and that is going to push up our food inflation, which is already over 9% because of all these things. And that affects mostly the poor. So unfortunately, all I can say is let us tighten our belts. And some people do not even have any belts to tighten because they cannot even afford to buy them.
No, absolutely. Professor Bonke Dumisa, an economic analyst, joining us this evening to speak about the direct impact on South Africa and South Africans of the conflict between Ukraine and Russia.